Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Hey folks, I want to thank you for joining us for the Statler Financial Radio Show. Hey, things a little bit different this morning. We don't have Danielle in first thing. She'll be joining us after we do this first segment. I wanted to spend some time with you today talking about the big, beautiful bill that was signed into law back on July 4th. And so it has some all-encompassing tax breaks. It really does help middle America when it comes to finances and taxes. And there's even some stuff for retirees that I want to talk about this morning. It's a huge bill. I'm sure we won't go through it all today, but I wanted to at least whet your appetite to maybe find out a little bit more about how you can maybe benefit from the big, beautiful bill. So let's just kind of dive right in and talk about what it is, what it may or how it may benefit you as we kind of dissect it a little bit to see what's on it. It was a broad bill in scope. Yes, it passed by the hair on your chinny chin chin, but it passed with bipartisan support, meaning we had everybody come together and at least 51% of the people voted for this bill in Congress. And to do that, they had to make some concessions for folks to get the congressional votes they needed. So let's start out with some of the basics. It's going to help everybody out there. Let's talk about standard deductions. So, back when President Trump first signed his new bill into law, he increased the standard deduction and got rid of the personal exemptions. Well, the standard deduction for singles was going to be $15,000 for this year and $30,000 for married filing jointly. Oh, that's going to go up just a tad. Not much, but every little bit helps. So now for 2025, the standard deduction is going to be $15,750 for single individuals and $31,500 for married individuals. So there we get a little bit of a bump. Depending on your tax bracket, that's still going to save you some money at the end of the year when you file your tax return. The other thing I want to talk about is, the one of the things they talked about was no tax on Social Security. Well, they couldn't really get that passed with that exact wording. But what they did do is that they increased the standard deduction for people that are 65 and older. So they call it a senior standard deduction. And so, seniors got a little extra standard deduction anyway prior to the BBB, but it was only like $2,000 if you're single and $1,600 if you are filing jointly as a qualifying spouse. Well, that's going to get a pretty big bump. And the reason for the bump is to help offset Social Security. So what we have is an extra $6,000 for seniors who are over 65 years old. Now, it's not just across the board. Not everybody gets it, but most everybody will get it. So it has some phase out. So what does that mean? So that means that everybody, single individuals get $6,000, qualifying spouses will get $6,000. So a married filing jointly, if one spouse is 65, then you only get extra $6,000. If both spouses are over 65, then we get $12,000 additional deduction. But again, like I said, that phases out. So what does that mean? So it means that if our income gets too high, then we start to lose some of that benefit. And the phase out for singles is going to be between $75,000 and $175,000 of income. which is a wide range, but that means they'll lose a little bit for each $1,000 of income they make. And for a married filing jointly, that number doesn't exactly double like it has in the past. On the low end, yes. $150,000 is where the phase out starts, but it stops at $250,000. So we get that will be the phase out there. So for most Americans who are over 65, they're going to get the benefit of this extra senior standard deduction, helping offset their income from Social Security. So a couple other things I found interesting is the SALT deduction. Remember, that's a state and local tax deduction. Floridians weren't really bothered by it a whole lot because you had a $10,000 amount if you could itemize anyway. But that they bumped to $40,000. Again, it has some phase outs in it that the people have to be aware of before they can use it. But most people don't itemize anyway, so it's not going to be a big deal that we've seen in the past. Northerners, Northeasterners, where their property taxes are outrageous and they pay a state income tax, for them, this is a big deal. So what are some of the new things in this bill? Well, one of the new things is a tax deduction for your tip income. So folks can deduct up to $25,000 a year starting in 2025. And this provision is retroactive to January 1st. And so $25,000, it does have a phase out. So if you are single and make over $150,000, well, you're going to start to lose some of that deduction. For married filing jointly, that happens at $300,000. Probably not going to be an issue when it comes to tips. The other one, though, it could be an issue, and that's a new deduction for overtime pay. So now, and this is retroactive back to January 1st as well, if you are paid overtime, you can deduct up to $12,500 per taxpayer from your income for overtime. So 100% of your overtime up to that $12,500. Again, it has a phase out. So if we make a single over $150,000, it will start to phase out. And if you're married, that number is $300,000. So another big thing that will help individual taxpayers when we look at especially the tipped. I mean, you think about $25,000, even if you're at a 12% tax bracket, that's $3,000 a year you're going to save in income taxes. So that's a big number. So we looked at then to help families, we had a little bit of a bump for the child tax credit. So up until this bill passed, it was going to be $2,000 in 2025. That number is going to be a little bit higher. So the maximum credit will be $2,200 for 2025 and beyond. And so up to $1,700 of that will be refundable. So that's good. It also phases out for higher income levels. $200,000 for single, $400,000 for married filing jointly. If you hit over that amount, then you're going to start to lose that. Let me back up just a minute. I forgot to mention this. On the tax deduction for tips and for overtime pay, that's not going to go on forever. It will go away. It phases out in 2028. So up until 2028, you'll get that deduction. After 2028, you will not get this deduction. It's not in the bill to last forever. So just so you understand that. The other two other things I want to talk on real quick while we have some time in this segment And the first thing is the auto loan deduction. So now you can deduct up to $10,000 of interest expense on new car loans. Now here, there's a few caveats here, right? Number one, you had to purchase it this year after January 1st, 2025. It has to be a brand new vehicle, and it has to have been assembled in the United States. So if it meets all those qualifications, then you can deduct up to $10,000 of interest expense. You don't have to itemize to get that deduction. Now, it does start to phase out at $200,000 for a married filing jointly return. And then the last thing I want to talk about is charitable deductions for non-itemizers. So think about that. You know, you've been told, or you looked at when you filed your tax return these last several years, don't worry about deductions for charitable giving because you're taking a standard deduction, so it doesn't count. That changes. This one starts in 2026. And so what you have to do is you have to keep receipts for those deductions, and you will get $1,000 in addition to your standard deduction for single, $2,000 for married filing jointly. So that's another bonus for those people that are charitably inclined. And let's face it, most people are between, baseball teams and church and other things will give away $1,000 or $2,000 a year. Now we just got to keep track of it again so we can get our tax deduction for that. So as you can see, we've not even touched really the surface of what this big, beautiful bill has to offer when it comes to business deductions, some of the retirement planning options that are out there. And so, taxes are one of the big things we look at when we talk about our core retirement design. We want to help folks design the retirement they always dreamed of. And there's 3 key points we look at. One of those being taxes. How can we save the most in taxes? And the big, beautiful bill plays a big role in that now. And so, look, I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you, answer your questions, and to see if you're on the right path to the retirement you dreamed of. You can give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 for our core retirement analysis. It's a 30-minute phone call. Give us a call, get on our calendar, and let's see if you're on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of. So again, folks, I want to thank you for joining us today as we head into our next segment. There's Danielle walking into the studio now. Stay tuned for the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He is the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. Now, did you know that if you're running your own business, then you've got a few extra twists and turns on the road to retirement, right? No 401k, no problem. But today we're going to be digging into how you can get retirement ready when a corporate 401k isn't part of the picture. Phillip, we're coming back into the show here. Are you excited about today's topic?
Hey, I am, because I have been dealing with small businesses and their retirement plans for probably 30 years. But it's been one of the things that have been, back in my accounting days, we would help small businesses really look at the options that were out there and try to figure out which one was the best one for them. And there's a lot of options out there that the small business owner can use.
That's right. And I think it's important that we're talking about this today. And I kind of want to kick us off here with an article from Investopedia. And it states that as a small business owner, you are completely responsible for your own retirement planning. If you have employees, you may feel responsible for helping them plan for a confident retirement. That's a lot of pressure. So, Phillip, how can these small business owners prepare for retirement?
Well, I think that one of the things that they need to do, it obviously depends on what stage you're in that business and development. But one of the things as you're getting closer and closer to retirement is you have to have an exit strategy. You need to understand, how are you going to get out of this business? You got to prepare, think about ways to sell your small business, because at some point, you're going to want to exit and truly retire. And so, some of the things is you have to know how to operate without you, because most small businesses, Danielle, the owner is the operator. And so you need to understand how to run a business without you being the operator. And that will help you really focus in and help somebody want to buy your business because it makes it easier for them. The other thing you need to do is you have to look to see what is the ideal buyer for your business. And every business is going to be a little bit different when we look at that. I think that when we look at businesses, it's interesting how they come to form and then how they grow over time. And I think that's one of the areas that you just have to look at. And I think a lot of people, Danielle, when they start a new business, they don't think about the exit. I know I didn't. I just wanted to help people, both when I did my accounting practice, I wanted to help small businesses and individuals pay the least amount of taxes possible. And when I started the financial planning business, it was more about, hey, look, I want to help folks be able to retire comfortably and to enjoy their retirement. And so that's really the focus when you start a business, is you're there to provide a service, you want to help. And so we don't think about what's the exit strategy until we get well into the game. But it would help, though, if you think about the end at the beginning. It will help you develop a plan that will be better in the long term.
Phillip, you're right. There's so many things you have to consider, especially being a business owner. And I think one of the challenges for people who own or work for a small business is the lack of an employer-sponsored retirement account. So let's kind of talk about the options for retirement savings for people who don't work for a big employer.
Absolutely. So there are a few options for small business owners when it comes for being able to save for retirement. Some are more pro-business, some are more pro-owner. And so you have to kind of look at those things, right? You've got a SEP IRA, and a SEP IRA is for self-employed individuals or their employees. You got to have at least one employee. But you got to participate. All your employees have to participate. So you can't just give it to yourself. You have to give the same thing to each, not the same dollar amount, but the same percentage to each of the employees. Then there's a simple IRA, which is one of my favorites. It's for any self-employed individual or employers with 100 employees or less. You have to have less than 100 employees total. Then you get into the little bit more complicated ones to a degree, and that would be a solo 401k. And this is for self-employed individuals that have no employees, or just them. And so that's one that's you can max out how much you can put away for your retirement. Now, there's one more step that we need to look at too, and that's just a regular 401k. So if you have employees, then you can look at putting together a regular 401k. Now, they're a little bit more costly than the other options that we mentioned already, but they also can give you more options if you have employees that will benefit you in the long run. You know, we don't talk about employer plans and retirement plans a lot on our show. We mostly focus on individuals and planning for their retirement. Well, I want you to know that they're kind of the same, right? That you got a plan. That's the whole thing. And if you are an owner, operator of a small business, I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you find the right retirement plan for your company. And give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. And we can walk through the process and determine which plan may be best for you. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
We want to remind you that there is no cost, there's no obligation to talk with Phillip and the team. If you need help with your own retirement plan or if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to call 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, Phillip, let's also talk about how the retirement transition can be challenging really for everyone, especially when you leave your job behind. So how do you help guide people in saving for retirement when it's time for that season?
Well, I think it comes down to planning, right? If you don't have a plan, then you don't know what direction to go or how to get there. And the plan, I mean, we can plan at any point in time, right? You're going to retire in 30 days. We can put together a plan. You've already retired, and now you need to know what to do. We can put together the plan. But the ideal situation is that we start couple years, maybe even 5 years before you're going to retire, start putting together that plan now so that we can then kind of track it. Are we on track in year 3, year 4, and year 5? Hey, I'm going to retire this year and everything looks good. Pull the trigger. We're ready to go. And so I think that that's really what I would look at, is just making sure that we've got a plan in place to deal with all the differences that happen in life when we actually retire, Danielle.
And Phillip, are there things that business owners and really anyone going into retirement might want to think of, especially when it comes to their lifestyle in retirement?
I think so. I mean, I think there's some things that you really have to think about when you look at retirement. Too many people, I think, focus on the money. How much do I have saved? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to plan with it? Well, I think there's even more important questions than that. What are you going to do in retirement to keep yourself busy? And that's a big deal, because I will tell you, from my experience, that having that question answered ties directly back to the money and how long it's going to last. Because people that don't have a plan on what they're going to do with their time, they typically will overspend because they're bored. And that can be detrimental to your retirement. Other things you need to look at, though, is where do you want to live? If you're retired, you don't have to live where you live now. People here move to North Carolina or Tennessee or South Carolina, those places. People up in the north, they move down to Florida. They want to be where it's going to be warm. You need to look at what's the cost of living going to be where you plan to retire. And then lastly, and again, part of our core retirement design is, where's your income going to come from? How are you going to get that income? And is it going to be enough? Those, I think, are some really important questions that folks need to answer, because if you don't know where that income's coming from, how can you have the confidence to enjoy your retirement? And I would, again, emphasize that having that income plan in place can really bring certainty to the time you get ready to retire. And that's one of the things that we really look at, Danielle.
You're right, Phillip. When it comes to retirement or anything in life, we know that income is the foundational key to an overall retirement plan. So let's kind of also go into, are there certain things that go into creating a comprehensive retirement income strategy?
Well, there is, Danielle. We look at a couple of things when we look at income. It is one, how do we maximize Social Security? What's your Social Security going to be? And when's the best time to take it? Do you have a pension? If you have a pension, how is that going to play into our overall plan? And then what buckets do we need? And so that's really what we look at is if we don't have a pension, well, then we know we have to create one. And so we'll look at the options to create that pension for you, creating a lifetime income that you can outlive. These are important things when we look at kind of how that retirement looks going forward. Danielle, so many people out there, they don't have a written retirement income plan. They just haven't put one together. And so I'm going to say it's less than 30% of the people out there actually have one. So I'm guessing that most of you don't have one. Mm-hmm. So look, it comes down to a couple things. One, you don't know how much you've saved until you really kind of start counting. What does it look like for you? And then how are you going to spend your money? Where is it going to go? How much do you need to spend? Too many people look at it the other way around. They look at how much have I accumulated. And that's great, but how are you going to spend it? And if you spend too much, then you're not going to have enough to live off of. And so that's why I think it's important that folks have a written retirement game plan in place that they can look at, that they can track, they can make sure that every year, okay, I'm in line with my expectation. I still have the amount of money I think I should have. My income is what I need. And so it gives you that track to run on. If you don't have one, if you don't have a written retirement income plan, please don't head into retirement. Give me a call, 863-877-1188 for our core retirement analysis, where we'll look at where you are right now and see if you're on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of. If you're not, I'm going to suggest some tweaks that you may need to make. And if we can help, we're going to tell you, hey, look, this is some things that we think that we can help you with. If there's areas that you're doing really well in, we're going to tell you, you don't need us. You're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing. But it comes down to that core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188.
We like to remind you there's no cost, there's no obligation to speak with Phillip and the team. It's very simple. Call that number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Phillip, I always appreciate your great insights here. You want to stay with us because small business owners, they face some unique challenges in preparing for retirement. Now, if you're your own boss, this next segment is for you. We're going to walk through how to prepare an exit strategy in some of the factors that you might want to consider as you head into retirement. Stay with us. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your R&D, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. Hey, we're talking about small business owners and the unique challenges that they face in preparing for retirement. So if you're your own boss, things look a little different for you as you prepare for retirement. You don't really get to just pick a retirement date and just walk away from your job. So, Phillip, one step that small business owners don't want to really overlook is creating a business exit strategy. Walk us through that process.
Absolutely, Danielle. You know, a lot of folks out there think that of an exit strategy as a way to end the business. But you should probably think of it as a plan that will move a business toward long-term goals and allow for a smooth transition to another owner. So all exit plans will be different depending on a lot of things, right? The size and type of business, you know, but it boils down to the end goal for all of them is to help create a foundation for future goals and new directions. And so you need to decide what will be done with your business when you decide to call it quits. So you decide to, hey, I'm going to retire. Are you going to close up and just liquidate it? Or are you going to sell it to a new owner? These are things that you need to plan out. And so it's best to think through your plans well ahead of time so you aren't making emotional decisions about your company and its futures. And I'll just say this, as I've worked with in the accounting industry, so many business owners, you know, have I'm just going to say an unrealistic expectation of what their business is worth. And that's sad to say a lot of times, but you know, so many small business owners feel like their business is worth more than it actually is. And the reason for that, the reason it's not, is they don't have processes in place. You know, it can't be run by somebody other than the guy that started the business. So there's things there, Danielle, that need to be put in place well ahead of time before we're gonna sell it.
You know, there's no point in doing it by yourself. It's very simple by giving Phillip and his team a call. There's no cost. There's no obligation. That number, again, is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. So we're talking today about small business owners, but there are also some similar steps that we think that everyone might want to make as they are getting closer to retirement. So, Phillip, another step for small business owners is to appraise the value of their business assets and investments. Can you walk us through that process?
Well, yeah, you know, it's really easy to overestimate how much your business is worth. So it's good to get a valuation from an independent appraiser who understands how businesses get evaluated, and they can come up with an accurate number that what your business is valued at. And that's a good starting point. And so if we're expecting a certain amount of money from selling the business for your retirement, but the business sells for less, folks, that can be very challenging, right, for you as you prepare to retire. And I've seen that happen before, right? I've seen small businesses who are transitioning into retirement, and they think their business, you know, is worth a couple $100,000, but they can't get anybody to buy it for that. And they end up selling it for maybe, you know, $95,000 or $75,000 because that's what the assets are worth. And so that can be very challenging for folks. And so same thing with your assets and your investments. If you're, you know, not a business owner as well, if they aren't worth as much as you thought, you'll either need to adjust your lifestyle or you're going to have to figure out another plan for income. I mean, that's really kind of what it boils down to. And so when we look at that, it's important to understand the penalties for taking from your retirement plan too early. Some plans will make you pay a penalty to access the funds, and others might cause the accounts to lose principal or interest. So there's chances that you could lose out on tax benefits as well as avoiding access to funds until you retire. That's really what's going to be best for you. Is if it's a retirement asset, don't access that money early. I've seen business owners do that as well, Danielle, they hit a rough patch in their business, and so they go and they rob from themselves in their retirement plan and take money out of there to help fund expenses going forward. And let me just encourage you to not do that, to find a better way to make that happen. So talk about retirement plans and retirement. The other thing that I've seen, Danielle, I want to mention this real quick because this happens more often than I'd like to see it happen, is people retire and they want to start a business. And so what do? They take the money out of their retirement account. A lot of times paying a penalty, because the IRS charges you a 10% penalty if you're not 59 and a half. A lot of times taking that money, paying penalties, paying taxes to start a business. And a lot of times, as well-meaning as they are, they're underfunded and it doesn't survive. So now we have a failed business and no retirement assets. Folks, make sure that you're getting good counsel when you start thinking about starting a business. Danny, I know that may be a little off topic, but I think that from my experience, it's one of those things that I see pop up occasionally, and it can be devastating to a retirement plan for sure.
Phillip, you're right. It's really good that we have these reminders in knowing the best ways to start a business, especially at some point you're going to reach retirement and you need to have enough income. So even let's go into how much should you save for retirement? Where should you save it? And how can you make sure that it will last after you leave your job for good? These are some questions that you probably have to ask yourself as you're getting closer to retirement.
Danielle, those are good questions. And savings is a good place to start, a really good place to start. And getting ready for that next chapter in your life, you need those things. But you need to do more than just save money. You need an income strategy after you stop earning a regular paycheck or running a business. And if you're listening to me right now and you don't have that income strategy and it's not written down, it's in your head or in your advisor's head, and it's not written down for you to look at and to follow, then I invite you to give us a call so that we can help you create the budget you're going to need for the retirement you've always been dreaming about. Help you uncover some of the main risks posing a threat to your retirement, including things like inflation, the stock market volatility. We're seeing it hit highs, potential tax increases, skyrocketing health costs, all things that can eat into your retirement. Learn about the options of generating income in retirement and learn about ways to keep your current standard of living in retirement, even as costs continue to creep up. Folks, it's a complimentary analysis, no obligation for the listeners today. If you've got at least $250,000 saved for retirement, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll talk about where you are and where you need to be. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
Do not wait. Do not hesitate. This is the time now to get assistance, get help with your retirement plan. Phillip and the team will take care of you. It's very simple. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Call the number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Hey, we want you to stay with us. We're just getting started here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Phillip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit statlerfinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Thanks for joining us here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder of Statler Financial Services. Hey, we want to get your questions in this part of the show, so we'll get some insights here from Phillip on your retirement concerns. Plus, we're going to keep Phillip on his toes today with a lightning round. This is where we're calling it a Think Fast Questions segment. It's a little fun here, so it's going to be fun. So I hope you're ready, Phillip, to see what we got in store.
Let's just see what we've got here. I'm hoping that I can. The questions I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
The fast thinking. Now, sometimes I can be a little slow on my feet.
That's fine. We won't put you on a timer because we definitely want to provide some huge value for our listeners today. So let's just see what we got going here. But here's our first question. What could be the impact on my pension if I decide to retire early?
Well, a lot of times when folks retire early, they end up getting less money, right? Because it's based on pensions, usually based on years of service and your last so many years of your salary. And at the end of your working career is when you're usually hitting the high points of your salary mark. And so if you retire early, you get penalized because let's say you retire 5 years early. Well, there's each pension is a little bit different, but there'll be a reduction for each year that you retire early. And then you're missing out on the 5 highest salaries you're probably ever going to have. And so it's going to reduce your pension. I won't say significantly because everybody's going to be different, but there's definitely going to be a reduction if you take your pension early. I would encourage you to really look at the numbers and make sure that really makes sense for you.
That's right. I know many people have questions about that. So really good insights there, Phillip. Okay, our next question is, how might healthcare costs affect my retirement savings?
Healthcare costs are huge and they grow, it seems like, higher than normal inflation. And so we see that becoming a bigger and bigger impact on our retirement savings. So I think that we need to plan for it. We need to plan for it increasing annually, whether that's your Medicare supplement goes up, your Medicare Part B premium goes up. All those things are going to affect your retirement savings. And I would say for folks that decide that they want to retire earlier than 65 before their Medicare age, it can really be big, Danielle, because the cost of health insurance, and I've had this discussion in the last week with a couple of folks that are trying to think about retirement, and they've wanted to know, okay, if I retire at 62, can I do it? Well, we have to look at actually coming down, the end question ends up being, can you afford the healthcare costs? Because insurance is not going to be paid by the company now. You're going to have to pay it yourself for 3 years until you hit 65. And sometimes, Danielle, that's the one thing that says, well, maybe I need to keep working. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage you to really weigh that out if you're going to retire early and what that might look like for you when it comes to healthcare.
And I know, as you mentioned, Phillip, healthcare can cost thousands of dollars. This is why having a financial advisor by your side to make sure you're not getting all of your money taken away as you are in retirement. So Phillip and his team have done this for many years. This is your opportunity to get some assistance, to make sure it's being done the right way. Call the number 863-877-1188. That's 877-1188. Okay, going down our list, we're going to keep this rolling fast here. Our next question says, how do I calculate for inflation when trying to figure out if I've saved enough?
And that's a good question, Danielle. That's a really hot one right now because we've just come through a couple of years of some pretty high inflation numbers that nobody really anticipated, right? Because inflation has been so low for so long. And there's no way to really know historically what it's going to look like. We have to look back to say this is what we've seen before. And that can be our best gauge. It's really all we've got. But from what we've seen these last couple of years, we know that every so often we need to plug in a pretty big inflation number just to be safe. And you'd rather be safe than sorry, right? So if you add extra to your income plan, say, look, hey, 5 years from now, I need to adjust my income so that now maybe I'm taking, 10% or 15% out more than I did the last 5 years to help keep up with inflation. You don't know what that is, but if inflation is less than that, well, then you can always pare back what that number looks like. But I think you have to build a plan to incorporate the expectation that inflation is going to be higher than what we've been used to, even though we're seeing it trickle down right now.
That's right. And if you have a question about this or your retirement plan, this is where you have an opportunity to sit down with Phillip and his team. He has a core retirement design 30-minute call just with you to go over what you need. Where are you at in your retirement journey? So this is your opportunity. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Simply give his team a call, 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Okay. A next question that we have here is, when might be the right time to start planning for retirement?
Well, I don't know that you can ever start too early.
Yeah.
At least on the accumulation phase, right? As soon as you get a job, you need to start planning, okay, what do I need to put back to save for retirement? I think a more realistic answer, though, is to look at, hey, look, if you're getting 5 years before you retire, you need to start looking at where you are. You know, how much do I have saved? What are my current expenses? Do I have debts that I need to work on getting paid off? All these things come into play. Do I have a plan in place to make sure that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to have enough, that I'm putting enough in my 401k, or I'm putting enough in my retirement or my Roth to make sure that I'm going to be able to create the income I'm going to need when I get ready to retire? That's the $1 million question, right? And so it's not too early. I would say 5 years out is probably a perfect time to start the process. But if you're not there yet, or you're past that, don't say, oh man, I've missed it. No, you still have time. Even if you're already retired, it's not too late to go back and put a plan in place, because a plan to follow is going to be much better than no plan at all. And again, Danielle, that's why I created the core retirement design, to help people design the retirement they always dreamed of. And it's simple. It's a 30-minute phone call. We'll find out if you're on the right path to the retirement you dreamed of. If not, we're going to give you some ideas. Hey, look, maybe you need to do this. Maybe you can do that. And here's what we can do if you'd like. Give us a call, 863-877-1188, to start your core retirement analysis.
Well, Phillip, you got in all the questions that we had for you today, but hey, we're going to take a few minutes for a lightning round. This is going to actually help us get to know you better just a little bit, just to see just who you are behind the scenes. Okay, but the thing is, I know I didn't time you earlier, but you're going to only have 2 minutes to go through all the questions that I have for you.
Oh my gosh, so just 2 minutes?
Just 2 minutes. So I want you to answer as many as you can. I'm just going to spitball them, and then you just answer, and then I'm just going to go to the next question. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Let me get my timer ready. Here we're gonna go start in 3, 2, 1. Okay. What's on your bucket list right now?
All right. So England countryside.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
I don't know what my pet. I don't really have a pet peeve, I don't think.
Okay, we're moving on. Favorite comfort food?
Chips and dip.
Favorite athlete of all time?
Probably Hank Aaron, followed by Lou Brock.
Love it. Okay, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is Think and Grow Rich. I had it in my head. I couldn't pull it out of there.
Love it. Okay, movie you will watch over and over again?
I I don't really have one.
Okay, 1 minute left. Go to an icebreaker story. What's an icebreaker story that you have?
Probably an icebreaker story I have gets a little long sometimes, but I go back to when my son was in college, and he struggled, and we pulled him out of college, and he went to the GCBI, Great Commission Bible Institute, and how that really transformed his life and got him on the right path, and how God really worked through that to make a huge difference in his life and in our lives.
Love it. 30 seconds. Describe your morning routine.
So I'm up at about 4:30 every morning. I spend about the first 45 minutes to an hour doing my devotions and reading my Bible. Then I make sure I've had at least 3 cups of coffee. Then I usually do about a 30-minute workout routine at the house. And then I'm, in the shower, getting ready for work and out the door.
All right. We got through majority of them. I will say majority of them we got through. But actually, I really want to ask this last question. We have a time for it. What's your earliest financial lesson?
So when I was probably early middle school, maybe even in 5th grade, my brother and I, we mowed yards. And so we would go out together and mow yards, clean up yards, and that kind of stuff. And so my earliest financial lessons were really learning to take that money and to be responsible, right? If I wanted new clothes, I had to save up and use my share of that money to go buy new clothes. And so that was kind of my first lesson was really running that little business, having my own money, making, my parents taught me well, hey, look, the first that you get, let's give, a tithe back to the church. And then from there, what are you saving up for? And I would put that money out to the side and say, okay, look, it's time for school clothes. I don't want what my mom and dad are going to buy me. So I'll use my money to go buy what I want. That was kind of the rule of the day back then. And so that was kind of my earliest, and I started working, like I said, 5th, 6th grade on my own doing that. And then from there, when I was 15, I had my first job actually in a retail store. And so, I've always worked.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's funny how, the lessons that you learned at such a young age continue to be with you as you grow older, And so I think that's a beautiful thing. Phillip, that's all the time we have for today. Hey, thank you for passing the test. You got through all the questions. We even got through that lightning round. But hey, if you have any questions about your retirement, you want to sit down with Phillip and his team, don't hesitate to call. There's no cost. There's no obligation. All you have to do is simply give him and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Thanks for listening to this week's Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.